This video is going to show you Solo Grandmaster Nightfall, this time on the Inverted Spire. So this is the Solo Grandmaster Gauntlet series where viewers can vote on which loadout that they want out of the 5 options that you have on each poll. So I've done the poll, 13, 14 hours ago or whatever, so I've let it sit. It's round about 38% at no time to explain one. You'll see it on the screen. And then there's Trespasser that obviously didn't win, Grand Overture, Anarchy, Symmetry. None of those won. It was the no time to explain plus Arc Soul build. So the modifiers, I can cover that a little bit first. We've got Pestilence, Scions, Spawn Void Grenades at their feet. Champions are Barrier and Unstoppable, of course. Chaff, the general Grandmaster modifiers, Match Game, of course, Extinguish, all the general stuff. Double Vanguard drops, which won't affect us so much, but that is on. Shields are Void and Solar. There is a couple of Arc, so I guess it's all free, but you don't really need to do with the Solar Shields anyways. And then acute Arc Burn. With incoming arc and environmental damage is increased. So I don't know if these stack together. Who knows? Not 100%. But there's 2 incoming arc here, so God knows. But acute arc burn works for us, which is why I sort of put this as one of the options, because you can spec for an interesting setup. So we're using, as I said on the poll, it was an Arc Soul build, which means I have to go Stormcaller, obviously. So we're using Attunement of Elements, mainly because you can have the Arc Soul. This is the sort of best Arc Soul setup that you can run. I could have run Chaos Rage, I could have run Top Tree, I understand that, but I went all in on the Arc Soul, right? So we went bottom tree. Pulse Grenade, so that if I still want to use my grenade, which I may well do, then I can use that. Heal and Rift. Pairing that with the exotic pulse rifle, no time to explain, right? So this is what it does, right? It's got full auto, the time slip, you get the extra autonomous shot, whatever it is, and that then also stacks with the Arc Soul setup itself. We're using Vouchsafe, a Void Scout rifle with major spec in it, a Stormchaser, a linear fusion with frenzy on it, with a boss spec, not major, just because I was worried about the boss fight. As for the build, we're using the Getaway Artist, which converts your Arc Grenade into a supercharged Arc Soul. So this is the build. In terms of my armor mods and my stats, so I went a high resilience stat. Recovery is low, but doesn't matter so much as long as my resilience is pretty high. And then a max discipline build for this. We're using Linear Fusion Ammo Finder, Ashes to Assets, so we get increased super on grenade kills. The ammo finders aren't bugged. Scavengers are, right? Ammo finders still working as intended. Scavengers are bugged. That's how I perceive it. I've been playing like that all season. I haven't had a problem with ammo finders, but I have had a problem with the scavengers for the linear. So just thought I'd put that out there. We've got Shield Break Charge, high energy fire, so we get 20% weapon damage bonus when we break a shield. We've also got Barrier Pulse, Unstoppable Scout, double arc resist to account acute burn. Elemental Charge, so when we pick an elemental well up, we get Charge of Light. We therefore have Reap and Wellmaker, so after a class ability usage, our next weapon kill, any weapon kill, will give you an elemental well, thus giving us Charge with Light when we pick it up. We got Revitalizing, Blast, and Solar Fulmination, because we're not on a solar class, so we can we're not using classics obviously on arc, so I can stack those 2 together. And then Bomber, so I get more grenade energy when I do a rift, right? So that's going to sort of synchronize with everything that I'm using. I'm not using Scavenger, you notice I've got Linear Fusion Rifle Holster, which I think's actually a good pick. It's not actually too bad, right? Because as I said, there's no point in using Scavenger. I'm using double primary, so I may as well just use something else. Anyways, that's the setup that I'm using. So as we start the run, obviously we'll make our way to the starting section. What you need to realise is that this is a public patrol area. Obviously it's Nessus, so that there's other ads that can fight you that you wouldn't expect. There's always a Dreg around here, so I would recommend that you take him out, because he'll just keep throwing grenades at you, which isn't ideal because of acute arc burn. You can get hit pretty hard, especially if modular algorithm and acute arc burn are stacking together, which it does feel that. It feels like you get really hit hard by arc stuff in this. I don't know if they do or not, but in any case, we'll take out that drag behind us, so then we can deal with the main part, which is just dealing with the goblins and the cabal, the legionaries. So obviously we're using this Arc Soul setup. So what you've got to understand is Arc 3.0 hasn't come out yet. So this isn't going to be as effective as what I was hoping it to be. It's interesting, right? But it's not quite there in terms of effectiveness. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Arc Soul. So the Arc Soul ability via our subclass doesn't have enough range. I don't kid you. Like, to be honest, it's not the best Nightfall this because it's really long range sort of encounters, not so much short range. So I can't utilize the Arc Soul as much as I want to. So sometimes you might find I'm just using my pulse grenade. However, I have license to do that because I can get Arc Soul two ways, via my Rift, via my grenade. So just know that this Arc Soul isn't that good. It is good, like up close and stuff, but obviously on GMs you don't want to fight too close to the ads. And a lot of the ads do arc, so you got to play distance at times. So sometimes I may just whip out the scout instead. Like right now, I'm gonna take out this Colossus from a distance. The Scions can't one-shot me, but the two snipers at the same time can do that. So I've got to be careful of the snipers. That's why I'm taking a couple of them out. The portal, autonomous portal thing from No Time to Explain, that has actually more utility than the Arc Soul itself. That has more range than the Arc Soul, but they do stack together, and it is actually a fun build when you get up close and you've got an Arc Soul going, an autonomous portal going, and you're using No Time to Explain on a champ. It's pretty fun. You've got like three things at once dealing damage to a priority target, if you like. So it's got utility. Like, look, you can see the portal from this range. What's that? 10-15 meters. It's doing the work. But the Arc Soul's actually working here. That's the cap. Where you're looking at right now, I mean, it's round about where Arc Soul is at its maximum range. It's likely like this to balance for PvP, because if it had a lot more range, it would be a hell of a thing to balance in PvP. But in PvE, I would ask them, please, can you up the range on this Arc Soul? It's not long enough. It's not effective enough from a range. I'm not saying it should have a huge amount of range, but it should have more range and deal a bit more damage than what it does. Even if it's just something like 10-15%, just to creep it up just to that much more, to the point where you would actually run this over Voidwalker, or you would run this over Well of Radiance. I know like if you just fine tune it, sometimes it can go too far, but sometimes you've got to do that to get people to use something. If you just do something like an incremental change that's only slightly, it's not enough to warrant to actually take off Voidwalker or take off Well or Solar 3.0. So they need to sort of look at that, but obviously they are going to when Arc 3.0 comes out. So with this section, be careful. Notice that I just got hit by the Solar Centurion. Sometimes you can turn around and start shooting at me because there's advanced AI in GMs, of course. So your first protocol obviously is dealing with this barrier, no matter what loadout you use, and deal with this barrier because it will forever blind you and stuff like that. Like, you can jump over the other side of the map and skip him and get him at a later time, but this is your best time to get this barrier. You can get back up to this cliff zone, but once you jump down, it's difficult getting back up. So take your moment of opportunity to take this barrier now rather than later. Your next protocol is this solar shield. Now, there's a solar crate. If you shoot that crate, it will explode his shield. So this is the only solar shield that you need to take out in the entire strike. So you can just use the crate for that. And also, environmental damage is increased. So that box, that crate, does more damage than what it usually would. Really useful to know that. So that then enables us to take down this blood guard before we go over there, because obviously once we jump over there, that blood guard is going to focus on us, not the Vex. So what you need to realize is when there's two enemy races fighting each other, they will prioritize each other However, if you're within range of those enemies, they will both focus you. And that can be devastating. So you can actually sort of take advantage of the fact that there's Cabal versus Vex and let them be distracted with each other, and you can just pick them off. So that's what I've done there. I took the Unstoppable out as well. Shoot this crate to your right if you're going to fight from here, because the enemies can explode it and kill you. I'm going to actually go down from below. You can fight from up top, but I'm actually going to push a little bit, and I want to try and use my super and stuff. I got sniped from my right, which was unfortunate. Got us weak. But when we do pop our super, bear in mind we are going to get damage resistance. I baited out that Goblin's melee as well, because that could have killed me. We'll use a bit of the super. The super's obviously not good enough to sort of deal with anything other than trash mob ads. And even then, you're not completely safe in that super. I went with this though because I didn't want to go Chaos Reach, just because I can get more Arc Souls this way, and the video is centered around Arc Souls and No Time to Explain. And it's not about Chaos Reach, so I'm not going to use it, and that was the reason. Chaos Reach isn't actually that good. Only really good with Geomag. It is really good with Geomag, but you've got to opt into that build to make it good. If you don't run Geomag, the super is significantly worse. Like, its base form is poor. But as I said, as you get the Geomags on, it makes it viable. Right, so a Chaos Reach Geomag run would actually be really effective in this, and would be better than what I'm using right now. But obviously we're doing it off the pole. And this is the loadout that won, so that's what we'll run. The two barriers can be manipulated here. Obviously you can isolate one from the other by just peek shooting, you know, the left side one. Just know that because of how No Time to Explain works, it isn't really giving you any damage bonus. Like if we compare it directly to Outbreak Perfected, you're getting a damage bonus from the nanites, especially when you got Catalyst. It increases its damage the more nanites that are attached. So you're getting something there to easily break the shields. No Time to Explain, whilst very effective, is just a pulse rifle. It is just a standard old pulse. Like, the shots that it's doing to that shield take a hell of a lot. Like, look at this. This is taking 5-6 bursts. So I was sort of disappointed on how slow it was taking the shields. I was really surprised about the autonomous portal. That was the best part of it. Just the range it has and the damage it does. But I was disappointed with just, look at this. That's pretty slow. I know it is GM, but a general I've used. What did I use the other day? I used New Purpose. That was destroying the shields. Obviously, that's got adaptive munitions. But I can think of a couple of high impact frame pulses that would out damage this No Time to Explain in terms of taking a shield off. But this pulse also has the rewind, so you get your bullets back for all the crits that you get. So you can, in theory, shoot infinitely as long as you get enough crits. But the pulse suffers from range drop off. All pulses do in the game. They suffer from a kind of a harsh range drop off. Apart from the high impacts. High impacts do really well in GMs. But your rapid fire frames, adaptive frames are alright as well if you get a good scope and stuff. But the high impacts excel because they've got a higher range drop off. They deal more damage at a longer distance, and that's what you need in GMs. And that's what No Time to Explain is going to suffer from. It all depends on what you're doing, what strike, what are the maps like, what are the rooms like, are they big or small, or are they medium range? Medium range, you're fine. It's when you start going above that, you're experiencing so much range drop off that you would rather use your scout over a pulse. So even though they've buffed pulses and what they've done, the lighter wave frames like Bad Juju and stuff, it's still not good enough. With the pulses, they're still not quite there in endgame. Apart from Outbreak Perfected, it's the only really viable pulse I can stick my hands onto and say I want to run that. Graviton's alright, Lance as well, but it suffers from a similar thing. It's a better shield break. It does good job at breaking shield. It's got Vorpal and Turnabout. Turnabout's really good because you get an overshield when you break a barrier shield. So Graviton's got some utility. It has for sure, and breaking the shield isn't a problem. It's a little bit better because its mag size is a lot bigger. See, with No Time to Explain, my complaint with it is the mag is so low. 24 isn't enough, but you are getting the rewind. The problem is rewind isn't proccing, or isn't proccing as much on shields, right? Like as you're breaking the shield. So it's kind of like if you're mid damage and you're like at 15, you might not break the shield. So, but again, it is good. Look at that barrier, you just fell off map. If a barrier does fall off map, or any champ, as long as you've tagged that champ, you'll get the score. So just know that you'll still get platinum rank, even if that happens. So that's a failsafe. However, if a champ was to fall off map, this is more common with the fallen overloads on like Glassware. If they fall off map and you haven't tagged them, that's your platinum run over. Unless you haven't skipped any champs, because some GMs you can skip at one champ and still get the plat. What I'm doing here is I'm pushing these ads off the map. How do you do that? Well, with the scout. Scout's unstoppable. This has a unique effect on all ads. Scouts are insane in GMs this season because of that. It just means that it's kind of like your scout has a souped up high caliber rounds type thing, because high caliber rounds does something similar but not quite as good as this. It just means that you can stun lock ads and they don't damage you, and that's such a big deal because that's what GMs are all about. It's about you're taking heavy damage from all the ads, so you being able to just stun lock some ads because of Unstoppable is a big deal, and that's why Unstoppable Scout's such a good thing. Same is true if it was Unstoppable Pulse, but we've had previous seasons it would do the same thing, or if we had Unstoppable Bow, which we haven't had in ages. I remember when we had it, but we haven't had it in a while. And not talking about Leviathan's Breath, but the seasonal mods in itself. Speaking of Leviathan's Breath, that can also still unlock enemies and bosses. So there's utility there, and I think people aren't aware that the Unstoppable and the Champ mods, they work on all enemies, but I don't blame why they don't know about it. It's the game. The game doesn't tell you properly. It doesn't give you a detailed explanation of, right, these are mods to your weapons. They have a unique, they break barrier shields, they do this, they do that, but it should explain that they penetrate Hobgoblin immunity, they go through Cabal shields, they do this, they do that. It doesn't tell you anywhere properly. That's why people don't know. So if you don't watch YouTube and you don't watch runs, then you wouldn't know. But yeah, that's why you always want to use like Overload SMG, Overload nades, whatever it might be. Even if you're not doing, if you're doing a dungeon, they're still useful in there. So use champ mods still in dungeons, even if it's not Master. I know that Master has champs, but the Legend doesn't, the normal version doesn't, but still use champ mods. It's still highly useful. So this is where you can see I'm dealing with the barriers, right? I'm picking them off, but notice what I've done. I've manipulated the two enemy races against each other by leaving a Void Shielded Cabal up. I don't know why I'm not doing this right now, but I should be farming this Void Shield with Charge of Light. That's why I actually left him up, but I hadn't refarmed up. That'll give us our buff. So right, I'm going to do it now. So look, I break the shield. It's a free 20% damage bonus. That's why I'm using Shield Break Charge. Right, it's an added bonus. It's helpful to me, and it's only one mod. Shield Break Charge is a really good mod. I've been using it for years. It's useful when there's a lot of shields. So that's that dealt with the barrier. I suppose I'm underselling No Time to Explain. And again, we're fighting Vex. Their crit is a little bit more difficult to hit because it's just that little diamond in the middle of the Hobgoblin. This would probably be a little bit more effective if it was like Hive champs. Really good on Hive Knights because the crit's so easy. And I suppose Fallen Servitors as well. So I am kind of underselling how good No Time to Explain is. It's obviously better when you are powered of an activity. It's even better at that point. It just doesn't scale as well as I would like to GM Sandbox. What I mean by that is scale-wise, I mean that when you're underpowered, does it still do potent damage? Yes, medium, but Outbreak Perfected is like 10 out of 10. It still does amazing damage even at that difficulty. right? And that's why you know you've got to sort of compare the two because they both sit in the kinetic slot. You know, so they're filling a similar role, and Outbreak's just a little bit better at it. But not everyone has a catalyst for Outbreak, so if you don't, then it's a little closer between the two on what's better. So notice I have Charge of Light. I had Charge of Light to deal with that champ, because that champ is sort of out my range, so I needed that damage bonus to help assist with the No Time to Explain, and I used Stormchaser to really help me out. I am not using Stormchaser as much as I should in the run to try and showcase the build as much as possible. Just know how strong Stormchaser is. You know, I'd realised that on how good it is, especially with Arcburn in this. It's literally the best linear fusion in the game. If anything, it's like on... They could have made Stormchaser an exotic and I would have believed them. Before this the expansion came out, if they'd said, right, we're going to get a new style of linear fusions, it's going to be called Stormchaser, and it's like a pulse variant of linears, and it's an exotic, I would have thought, oh, that does sound exotic. So this gun's that good, it feels like an exotic, Stormchaser, which is good. It's a really good thing, but it's also kind of a bad thing because they're going to end up touching it. I believe they'll probably tune it down a little bit because of it's the go-to. Doesn't matter now. Like apart from like bait and switch Cataclysmic that can beat it out. Other than that, your other linears I've got no chance. So what I'm doing here is just clearing the two blood guards. You can see the battle guard, the battlegrounds has a lot of ads up. I'm not going to take those ads. I'm not going to spend and take time on them. I know that you could. Yes, it's counted as a skip type of thing, but what's the point? There's no incentive. I don't need the points. What I do really want to do is showcase the build off and not spend too long. The video was already creeping up a little bit longer than what I wanted, so again, I'm not going to be... You've seen me use it on the ads, so you've seen what it's capable of. So as I said, I'm not going to sit here all day and scout all those ads down in the middle, but we are going to make sure we can stay alive. Right, so the solar shields, there is solar, right? There'll be a couple of them as well. If you're going to do this skip, and obviously we're not on Hunter, this would be easier on Avoid Hunter, be careful because they can kill you on the way. What I suggest is shoot the barrels like I just did, because if they explode the barrels when you're close, you will die due to environmental damage. Loop around the cover that you have, quickly get that switch, and then zip out of there. As you're jumping across, ADS, your scout, or whatever weapon you're using, glaive, it might be glaive, or whatever you're using, to get a stun. That will clear out so many of the ads. Then hide, save a rift, because you may get hit by the Cabal behind you. That is a danger, and he's kind of random. Something I don't like. I guess that's the con to skipping them, is that they are a risk up here sometimes, and they could kill you without you knowing, because you're focused on what's in front of you, not what's behind. It's just a thing, just to sort of keep an eye on your health. This is actually quite a dangerous part. So we manipulate the Unstoppable with cover. These Unstoppables aren't smart. If you stop them and do a bit of damage and go back into cover before they regain their consciousness or whatever, they won't push you. Whereas if you're still shooting as they start regain that, then they're going to push round that corner of the map. So it's knowing how to control them properly. So just take note of when I'm peeking and not. So this is another sort of way around this barrier, because this barrier is dangerous when you jump down, because there's gladiators, there's cleavers, whatever. So they're going to push you as you deal with the barrier, which is quite dangerous. But to get around all that, just do what I'm doing here. Try not to nade the champ, because the champ can get pushed out of sight. Rockets and stuff can do it as well, so I suggest just use your primary on that. On the barrier, you'll take them down quick enough. Now what I'm doing is shooting a load of barrels. I want them all taken out, because even when a cleaver rushes you, it can actually explode, like merely the explosion, and that can detonate them. You've really got to pay attention to the environment in this, which is actually a very interesting concept. They need to push that concept a bit more about using environments in Destiny overall. Like, I don't know, make more breakable things. I know that there was like there was a bug not a bug, but somebody actually found breakable objects on the EDZ in a glitch zone. That was like months ago, but they should do more breakable stuff in the game that you can use, like you can play like hazard play in the game, you know. But they would have to invent more stuff, more mechanics with it. But it is an interesting concept, and there's nowhere really in the game that does it. There was a couple of environmental mods on Nightfalls, but they've kind of gone. There's not many of them. This is one of the last ones that we have. So we'll activate the switch once the cleavers are down. Obviously take those two first. I mean, you don't have to. You can actually activate the switch and come to where I am and actually skip those as well. I just took them out anyways to show off the Arc Souls. This is a combat loop. You will constantly get your Arc Soul back, so you get back-to-back Arc Souls. Especially with, I mean, I believe you can probably get it with tier 9, tier 8 discipline probably. So yeah, and not only that, I could, you know, consume my grenade and then do a healing. I'm not going to do that right now though, because it's actually key that I stagger the odds. So I used a pulse nade to stagger them rather than the Arc Soul. It wouldn't stagger them enough, because they can kill me here still. This is quite dangerous. Now I am skipping this Unstoppable, but he's allowed. You are permitted to skip him. You will still get platinum rank, providing that you've killed every champion thus far and what's coming up. But think of it as a free gift. You are allowed to skip any champ that you want. Pick one. I pick this one because this one's the most awkward. Not to say that I can't do that. I can, but we'll just skip. Why not? You're allowed to. It's a free gift. So just take it. Choose it wisely. There's no point skipping the champ right now, the one that's coming up, because we've got to deal with this whole encounter anyways. So again, you can kill him. It's not a problem to do that. Just be wary of all the legionnaires that push you as well. So now we're going to play this slow by farming up Charge of Light, so I get my damage bonus, and we're going to use the Revitalizing Blast Solar Fulmination to its fullest and sort of let that do my damage. Notice I was on about the control of Unstoppable. So as long as I say, you go back into cover as they before they regain consciousness, like that, the Unstoppable forgets where you are. Whereas if I was to maintain aggro on this Unstoppable, he would then eventually push, which I'll let him do that. Like right now, I'm going to let him do it. You can see I'm letting that champ come in because we're ready for finisher, or we're ready for the kill. Because you want to lure this Unstoppable away from the snipers, yeah? Because the snipers up there, and as I said before, 2 snipers, 2 direct hits can kill you less than a second. So you've got to be really cautious and don't get lazy. Because Inverted Spire is easy, but you can take things for granted in this and die easy. Kind of like Armsdale, you can take grenades for granted and die easy. It's just the sort of same thing. So it's a low risk Nightfall, but it can still be high risk at times if you're not paying attention and you're shutting off. This is just showing you how to deal with this counter right here from a long range engagement. You can literally, again, shield break charge, so good in this. I can farm up Charge of Lights and then just get my damage bonus and just use the perk of the Revitalizing Blast. I've got Heavy behind me, which I actually totally forgot, so I should have used some of that, which I didn't. So yeah, make sure that if you've got a brick or two, that's licensed for 5-6 shots. The only thing as well, these Unstoppables round that corner, he's not sort of peaked fully, so I'm not in a position to get the critical hit, so it'd be a waste just using it. I've got actually another ledge here to go to, so I'll jump to this ledge. There's a Void Ultra as well with a Void Shield, so there's a couple of Void Shields to farm. The goal is to have Charge of Light while you're doing this Unstoppable, and then have Charge of Light for the next encounter for the barrier, because this barrier that it's coming up is very difficult, or can be difficult, as he's a solo barrier. There's different barriers obviously, so this barrier isn't the one that does the arc blind. Well, he does an arc blind, but the one that's like constant, that one, it's not that one, it's the one with the solar minigun. But he does have the available, it can blind you with an arc attack at the start when you aggro said champ. which is why you need to be cautious. We'll deal with these backpacks. I'm not going to deal with the Void Ultra at the back because that's just going to take too long. But I will farm Charge of Light off that one because, as I said, I want that. I'll get my ×2, in fact. To skip, just make sure you're full HP before you bypass, because this this Ultra is going to do a bit of damage to you. You can see that's the environmental damage right there doing so much to me. You can see that. Because that's what it's classed as. Even though it's solar, it's also classed as environmental damage. Folk won't know that, but the mod's not clear enough to tell you exactly what's classed as environmental damage, is it? So you've got to sort of work it out and see. So this champ, this is where you fight from. The reason why is because the turbines are a threat to you if scions are alive, right? So if the scions are alive, they will do their boop mechanic where they throw you up in the air. You're going to get one shot by the turbine if that happens, if you get thrown into the turbine. To avoid that, you can fight from up here. Means that you can deal with the barrier easily. The downside to this is you may miss a barrier or two because the turbine's coming across. So look, the turbine was bad timing. It come just as I was shooting. So I would suggest you prioritize using a little bit of heavy. Don't be spamming too many shots, but enough to get yourself away with this barrier, because it can be annoying fighting this barrier from here. The two barriers are even more annoying, actually. As I was saying before, with No Time to Explain not being as good as I thought it would be in GM content for breaking shields, it proved a little awkward. Because the idea here is it's RNG what heavy you get. So if I'm not getting any of heavy drops, then I don't want to be using much heavy at all, because we need plenty of heavy for the boss fight. Because the boss is quite tanky now, not like on Master. It's a very tanky boss. So, well, not very tanky, but you know, tanky enough to sort of warrant that you need plenty of ammo going into this. So we'll deal with any phalanxes that are in the way. There's a couple of dogs, Cabal dogs. It's actually worth taking those out because they just get in the way. So this is where I had a problem here with Arc Soul. I can't choose. So this is the thing as well with Arc Soul. You can't choose which target you want to shoot at. I think the Arc Soul should just shoot the target that you're shooting with your gun. I think that would solve this, because look, the Arc Soul's shooting the left barrier. I don't want to kill the left barrier. I've committed to the right barrier, so now I'm not getting the gains. See, the way these barriers work, it's very subtle and you probably wouldn't notice it, but when a barrier gets like half HP and there's a full HP barrier next to it, the barrier that's half HP wants to go in cover. Right? And that's a sort of pain point. So whichever barrier that you've aggroed will want to sort of hide, whereas the full barrier, HP barrier, wants to push. Look, it's happening right now. This barrier is wanting to go behind that rock. And unfortunately, when I wanted it, Revitalizing Blast didn't proc. So now we can't get the shield break. Now look at this. Because I can't get the hit crit, I'm missing out. And I was hoping he would really peak for me, like just strafe left. And this is so unfortunate. I was so furious at the time doing this run. So it's like, why won't he just peak, man? And yeah, the body shot damage isn't enough, and we couldn't get the crit. So that's a wash. Barrier's regen, it's lost us 5 minutes. Fed up about it, but that's fine. We'll just start afresh. So yeah, again, if this was Outbreak, it would have really demolished these champs. So that, again, that's the difference in this endgame stuff, where you want your weapons to really work for you. Then that's why people go with the best picks. As I said, No Time to Explain is no joke. It's a very good weapon. I would say 8 out of 10, maybe 7.5, 10. 7.5 out of 10 rating, I would say, but Outbreak's like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. So that's the difference. So look, the same thing's happening with me. I'm less than half heavy, which is no good to me. So I'm not willing to use any more heavy. I believe there's a brick maybe, or one of these champs drops me, which is fortunate for me, but yeah, it's just a case of I'm getting unlucky a little bit. And that champ at the back is out of range for Arc Soul. So this is another problem with Arc Soul, is that it's not... He hasn't got enough range. I mean, that range from here to where that rock was, what's that? 20 meters? Probably less. 16, 17 meters, and it's not being able to do that range. I think it should at least have like a 20, 25 meter range. You know, pulse rifle range. It should have pulse rifle range. I think that would be acceptable for Arc Soul to have that. When you go down to one barrier and there's no more adds, there's no more cabal or no dogs, you can actually push the last champ down below, like here. The turbines never come on this middle level. There's bottom, middle and top. The turbines doesn't come on middle, so you can actually fight from here. And you have a better angle, a far better angle. Turbines won't interrupt your shield breaking, so you have a much better time then. So now we can get on with our strike, get on with the GM, and just finish his champ off. I'm going to decide to do something though. I'm actually going to... I could finish the champ, but I'm doing something on purpose. I'm going to get my charge of light now so that I don't have to worry about farming it up off the harpies. I could farm it up off the harpies, sure, but I'm going to just get it now. So I'm going to pop a healing rift. My next weapon farm blow will give me my Reaping Wellmaker. Well, it'll then give me high energy fire. So now I'm ready, I'm prepped. I've got my ammo, max ammo as well, which is good. I'm ready to do the damage on this boss, because as I said, it would be a huge disaster on a solo if you didn't have the ammo. I can't tell you how this would completely turn it on its head, and this boss fight's hard. Like if you haven't got ammo, this boss fight's hard. There will be nowhere to hide. Luckily the fight isn't designed and it isn't damaged. It doesn't have damage gates. If Inverted Spire come out in 2022 as opposed to 2017, this fight, because of the philosophy of what they've done with strikes, it would be different. The boss would go immune after a third HP and all that stuff. So just as well, because there's literally not much place to hide, especially floor 1. But obviously we do have the ammo. We'll let Arc Soul clean up the adds, right? This then will give us our pulse grenade back. I want to use the pulse, not the Arc Soul, because the pulse will do more damage overall. Then we're just going to lay into this boss as much as possible. We've got hit there once, too many times when I push up. The boss has a rotation of middle to right, then back right, and then back to middle. I know the rotation off bad. That's why I stood on the left hand side of the map. Don't stand on the right, he'll stomp you. You should be able to do enough damage in like 8 shots. I've done 8 shots and I'm good. Then you want to pick a short pillar. I just use this pillar. This is just where I stand because it stops the boss from dealing damage to you, and he will set the floor alight. But it's only for the floor, not for this pillar. So it means I can hide like so. Like I can do this duck shoot mechanic thing, right? So as well, don't do sustained fire. Look at that. I'm peak shooting, right? So do a shot duck. Do a shot duck. Sorry, because he does a huge amount of damage to you. As I say, I'm convinced Modular algorithm and IQ arc burner stacking because he's doing huge amounts of damage, and I'm high resilience. I know it's GM, but that was like, he's only just doing, spraying me with like that arc attack. It's like doing huge damage. Arc Soul's putting in the work. This is where Arc Soul really shines on play 3. This is where I was really happy with the setup, because look at the assistance it's given me here. Right, you know, I'm clearing the odds quicker than usual. I've got a charge of light well, right, so this boss has transitions, right? I'm sure for veteran players they know how it all works. But if you don't know to a T, like, you need to know everything about it, because even though this is simple, if you don't know, if you mess up on one rotation, this boss can just about kill you really fast. With his arc attack and combined with his gun, could kill you really fast. So you really need to know the rotation of where the boss goes to and where the adds are coming from. See, for example, this phase here, I know that there is a goblin or two that creeps up behind you, sort of thing, or to the other side, as opposed to the other adds where the goblins are spawning from where the boss is. So I just need to remember that. You just need to remember stuff like that. Again, the adds they hunt they hunt like wolves. Once there's a less amount of adds, they won't push you, right? Because they're threatened by you, so they'll hug the boss. They'll hug the boss and say, right, I'm not doing it, I'm not fighting you, because there's only 2 of us left. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's actually a good way of explaining it. Like, look, there's 3-4 goblins left. The initial goblins pushed. They won't. So this presents us a little problem, because in this boss we're opening ourselves for risk. So we'll try and put in some damage what we can with the scout, but the game's wanting us to push up. That's fine. There's 2 pillars you can see with the Vex heads on them. They're the next port of call, because we don't want to show ourselves with this boss at all. And whenever he stops firing at you, take note and be careful by the arc attack, because it'll blind you and it'll do massive damage. Like, say for example you've been hit by a goblin, you're 70% HP, you're feeling good about yourself. You get hit by his blinding attack, that'll kill you from that, because he does about 60-70% HP to you anyway. So just at all times keep an eye on that HP for this. You really need to slow down your gameplay and look at what you're doing. I've done a healing rift here. Now this is a little bit more dangerous, but not too bad. I'll clear out the goblins with my soul, and no time to explain. When all ads are taken out, I'm happy. I'm back to my happy state. I'll come back here. We'll do a bit of damage, and we'll initiate the next phase. I haven't got the damage or the good soup class to sort of deal with this right now, in terms of like to break his head off right now before the next ad wave spawns in and kill him with Stormchaser, because I haven't got Charge of Light as well. But not only that, I'm not going to kill the boss, because obviously I need to keep the boss checkpoint. So for people who are still not understanding what I'm doing, or they haven't saw what I've posted recently, this is like an interactive viewer poll thing where I do community polls on loadouts. You vote on what you want, but I don't clear the run because I lose checkpoint. I'm not going to guild my Conqueror until near the end of the season. That way I have unlimited tests on these GMs. I can run multiple loadouts. The rule, I guess, is that I leave the boss literally one shot. So I've simulated the run, right? I could have finished the boss off. Obviously, I'm not going to. I do not want to lose this checkpoint. It's too early yet in the season. I want to run over. I'll run over inverted spires. Obviously, not after this one. There'll be another. It'll be inside terminus or whatever it is, whatever I choose. But I can run over runs later on, right down the road in the season. But I could have been in a position to finish the boss off with the way Stormchaser works. You'll see the damage I do later on, anyways. But obviously, if I, have high energy fire, spam linear, spam Stormchaser as the boss's head breaks off, and then hit his belly, then pop super, I would go Chaos Reach instead with Geomag, and then just use that. That would then finish off the boss. So if you are going to go this route of using Arc 3, not Arc 3.0, but Arc, then I don't recommend doing this loadout. I recommend that for a really effective loadout would be Chaos Reach, Geomag Stabilizers, Outbreak Perfected, Stormchaser, and then a Scout or Glaive. Your choice. Or Soul 3.0 with a Well of Radiance and melt him that way with Stormchaser. Do it that way. Either or. They're both two good, really effective ways of getting you clear, if that's what you're just looking to do. Obviously, I'm looking to make content on it and sort of go the entire season doing this. So some loadouts are going to be less effective or more effective than others. It's just a matter of the thing. So there's the Arc Soul's done a really good job of taking these harpies, because obviously I have got an arc weapon which is Stormchaser, but I don't want to use too much ammo of that. You would save it for boss damage. Obviously I could have used more Stormchaser, because I'm not killing the boss, am I? But obviously I'm going to get him weak enough so that I would be in a position that I would kill him. The position would, just note that I might get called for this, but I would slightly change the end a little bit if I was actually getting a clear. So I would clear this last set of ads. I would get the boss below a third HP right before the boss's head knocks off. I would make sure I'm charging light. So I would do a bit better job of that. And I would lay into him with the Stormchaser and then use Chaos Reach. Obviously my loadout would be different with Geomag. And all of that combined will kill the boss on this final phase. Because obviously there is a final set of wave of ads fanatics that spawn in. Right? So we'll break his head off. I'm just about to do it now. There'll be another wave of ads. So as I said, I'll try and get the bosses weekly, as weak as possible as I can, until the point where I'm frightened that I'm going to lose checkpoint. As I say, I'm not willing to lose checkpoint right now. Right, just so people are aware of that. But as I said, I'll get him weaker. I'll get him to that final phase as good as I can. And at that point, then we'll just, as I say, go to Warbit. That's what would happen on the Curse Reach. Imagine that. You do another shot, then Curse Reach, and that will kill the boss. 100%, because he's like 10% HP now. Obviously, I'm on the other Storm. I'm on the really bad Stormcaller, right? Well, I'll just clear the first wave of Fanatics at the very least. Boss is weak. I'll show you his HP. That's his HP, look. As I said, I'm not willing to do any more than what I've done there. So I'll go to Orbit. That was a solo on it. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.